Once again, it's time for Off the Top Sportscast. I'm John, and that right there is Roy. And our topic today, football season is coming, and it's coming quick. So I have my list of A, B, and C running backs. So it's interesting. This one was a little bit interesting for me because running backs have been kind of declining in their importance and in roles. So to find some, it was a little harder. You know what I mean? That I go, I'm going to grade these guys. I have a couple guys that were right outside the C. Let's get started here. My first C-rated running back is David Montgomery from the Lions. Now, Montgomery is one of those guys who has kind of traveled up and down the list, but he had a really good year this year in Detroit. He had 1,000 yards, 1,015 yards, and 13 touchdowns. And he had 117 yards receiving. So just under 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns. And the touchdowns is a big thing because yardage without the end is just yardage, especially with running backs. So that's my first C-rated running back. My next C-rated running back is Travis Etienne. So Travis Etienne was on a team last year that it almost seemed like they did not utilize him correctly. They felt like they really wanted to throw that ball. And it seemed to me that he kind of went in and out of favor with that team. It was kind of a weird year. Maybe with Ridley not there, I don't know. I think Travis Etienne is a solid pick because of everything that he can do. My next one is going to be Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is now in Houston with all the weapons that Houston has. He had 1,034 yards, 9 touchdowns, 376 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns. So that's a total of 12 touchdowns in a year where Burrow was down. He was a lot of the focal point, and they love to throw the ball. So to get that kind of production out of your your running back, I think that's pretty good. And now he goes to Houston, where they have a lot of wide receivers, and that I think is going to open up the running game for him. That is my C-rated receiver, my C-rated running backs right now. That is it. I got those 3 guys at C.
Okay. I'm very interested to see the B's in the A's. There's one guy here I wouldn't even put on the C.
All right. So my B-rated running backs. So Kyren Williams from the Rams. Kyren Williams was a really good surprise this year for the Rams. He had 1,144 yards rushing with 12 touchdowns and 206 in the air with 3 touchdowns. So 15 total touchdowns, about 1,300, a little over 1,300 yards. That's a really good year. And he's a guy, the reason I put him in that B category is because they like to throw the ball and they have a lot of wide receiver weapons over there. So I think he's going to stay at that B level running back level, but it wouldn't surprise me if he creeped into that A because he just has a lot of talent. My next one is going to be Breece Hall from the Jets. So he had only 994 yards, 5 touchdowns running, but he had 591 yards receiving. No touchdowns receiving. So he only had five touchdowns. Breece Hall, I know he didn't have the great production this last year. As far as touchdowns, he only had 5. But he did end up with like 1,300 yards total on a team that was really struggling offensively. So with Aaron Rodgers back at the helm, I think that you're going to see his rushing production go up. He's proven with that 591 receiving yards that he can catch the ball out of the backfield, and Aaron will utilize that. And so I think he's going to be a good B-rated receiver right now. But in years to come, I can see him being A. Bijan Robinson, I have him as my next B receiver. I mean, B running back, because he had 974 yards. He had 4 touchdowns. He had 487 yards in the air, and he had 4 touchdowns. So he had a total of 8 touchdowns. They utilize him a bunch in a whole bunch of different things. And I only see him getting better, and I only see that team getting better as they start to build what they got going on over there. We'll see if Kirk Cousins really makes such a big difference. But either way, I think you'll see his progression continue to go up. My next B-rated running back is going to be from the Miami Dolphins, and it's going to be Achane. So Achane had 800 yards and 8 touchdowns rushing. And he had 197 yards and 3 touchdowns receiving. So he did not crack the 1,000-yard mark this year, but he was banged up. Raheem Mostert does take a lot of the carries as well. I think they're going to lean more on Achane for more of what they want to do this year. And so I think he's going to end up being a much bigger piece.
Nice.
This next guy,
This is a B.
Yeah, he's my B. This next guy, I want to say that he is in this B because of coming off an injury. And that's going to be Jonathan Taylor. So Jonathan Taylor, the year before, he was hurt, and he came back and they brought him in slow. His first game was on the 10th or on the 8th of October. First game, he had like 6 carries. Second game, 8 carries. Next game, 12 carries. On and on and on. You could see that they were moving him up slowly. He only played 10 games last year. In those 10 games, he had 741 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 133 in the air, and 1 touchdown. So 8 touchdowns, a total of about 800 and something yards on 10 games after an injury. I think that's really good. I would not be surprised if he gets back to his old self and is a number 1 back. But because I haven't seen it yet, and because those injuries are hard to come back from, that's why I put him in my B. And that's my last B-graded running back.
Okay. Good grouping.
All right, here comes the A's. We've got Derrick Henry. 1,167 yards, 12 touchdowns, 214 in the air. we've got Josh Jacobs. Now, Josh Jacobs, listen, I'm not saying much about Derrick Henry because I don't think that we need to explain why he's a number one running back. And with the Ravens, he has even potential to be even score more touchdowns. I don't know if his yardage will be as high, but he has the potential to even score more touchdowns, right? So that's why I'm putting him as the 8th grade. Josh Jacobs is now with Green Bay. That team is young and hungry and rolling. On the Raiders last year, he went for 805 yards with 6 touchdowns and another 296 in the air. With that bad team that was basically falling apart, he basically got to 1,000 yards total. On this Green Bay offense, I think he has the potential to blow up even bigger. So I can't see any reason that Josh Jacobs doesn't go for 1,200 to 1,300 all-purpose yards this year with probably 10 to 11 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think he's going to help Love up.
Yeah, I mean, a young quarterback's best friend is a great running game, and Jacobs is such a good runner, and with all the outside receivers and help that they have, it should open up that running game. Now it's going to be predicated on their offensive line, which generally they've had a good one. So I think they're going to get it together, and I think Jacobs is in for a big year. This is the first person on the list that is a repeat player, meaning that he has his partner is my C-rated running back, and that's Gibbs from the Lions. So David Montgomery was one of my C-rated running backs, and Gibbs from the Lions is an A. He had 945 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns. He added another 316 receiving and another touchdown with that. So 11 total touchdowns. This is one of the most potent dual threat guys out there. He's so fast, and they utilize him so well. And 1-2 punches like Gibbs and Montgomery, I mean, is what drove the Lions to that NFC Championship game. So I think you're going to see Gibbs get more of usage this year, and Montgomery falls a little bit, and that makes sense. The next one is going to be James Cook. Cook this year had 1,122 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 445 yards receiving, and 4 touchdowns. So his touchdowns were not that great, only 6 this year. But he had, almost 1,600 yards this year. Now, that is on an offense that had half the season with different offensive coordinators. And he really got utilized more in the last 6 games of the season than he did in the first 12. So, putting a whole season together of him being really utilized, I think that he's only going to get better. I don't know his touchdowns. We have so many weapons in Buffalo. I don't know what his touchdowns is going to be. But I think his yards is even going to go up from the 1,500 that he already got.
Let's see. I think it's going to be a good year for him.
Now, these are my top 2 guys. Saquon Barkley, now the Eagles running back, 962 yards with the Giants in a bad offense. 6 touchdowns, 280 yards receiving, and 4 touchdowns. So he managed to get about 1,100 yards total, almost 1,200, and 10 touchdowns out of that really bad situation. I think at the very least he's going to get an easy 1,000 yards rushing with the Eagles offense. And I think that they're going to utilize him even more for touchdowns instead of jeopardizing their quarterback with that tush push. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, just have Saquon direct snap it and then do the tush push with Saquon and let him stick his head in there instead of Hurts. You know what I mean?
Right.
My number one running back, he's going to be Christian McCaffrey. He's got 1,459 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns. He added another 564 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns. So that means he's at the 21 touchdown mark. He's over 2,000 yards, total. And he's the total package right now on what you can get out of a running back. So that is my list. And I got some guys that were on the peripheral that I just didn't put in, but that is my list of running backs.
Good list. Good list. You didn't have Eckler in there.
I like Eckler. I just don't know what they're going to do because they also have Robinson over there. And so I don't know how they're going to split that.
You don't have Kamara?
No, I don't think he's going to do anything. I think the Alvin Kamara era is over.
You don't even have a C wide receiver. I mean, a running back.
No, I don't. He didn't do anything last year. So I don't know.
What about Harris?
So Najee was on the fringe of being 3. Let me tell you something. For as big as Harris is, I know that he's gotten 1,000 yards. I am not a fan of how he runs. For as big as he is, Warren, the backup, he should definitely be the number 1 back in Pittsburgh, in my eyes. And I think we're going to see that transition happen this year. So I think Najee's going to go down in carries and in yardage.
You don't have
another guy that I didn't put in there. Pacheco, I didn't have. Yeah, I didn't have him in there.
What about? I even like him for this guy. I think this guy I'm gonna say is a better running back than a lot of people give him credit for. White from Tampa. I think he's a good running back.
Who is that?
White from Tampa.
Yeah, I like White as a running back. I just don't think I think Tampa's going to take a hit this year. I think Tampa's in trouble. They really didn't do anything this offseason. I think it's going to come back to bite them. I will say a guy who was on my fringe as well as Najee was Swift, who is now in Chicago. It's just so many question marks over there.
Yeah, what about Stevenson?
Nah. He's an old school banging running back, and you need a fast guy. I'm not going to put any guys from New England on any list of mine. I think they're in trouble. The only guy in New England um, is going to probably be Matthew Judon. I will tell you that Jones, who was previously in Green Bay, I really like him, but he's in Minnesota right now. I don't know. I don't really know what Minnesota is going to look like. They got a lot of things going on, and some of them I like, and some of them I don't. Um, they have a good offensive line. They have a rookie QB who they're saying is not going to start. Um, Jefferson had a banged up year last year. Hopefully, he gets back to himself. Their other wide receiver just, had a DUI. We'll see what comes out from that. There's a little bit of a up and down in Minnesota right now that I think they're going to have to figure it all out.
Well, the lists are out. Let's see if people like the list. See if people think that some of the players that you picked in there should even be in there. Montgomery, I kind of had I had a little problem with that one. Mixon, I thought Mixon was a better wide receiver. I keep on saying wide receiver because I did the wide receiver, running back than what you touted him to be. And I think he's going to even do better in his new home.
I really like him. I like Joe Mixon, and I like that pickup for Houston. I just think that they have so many wide receivers that they have to feed that Joe's not going to be as much play. And he's getting older, So that's all. I like Joe Mixon, though.
Jonathan Taylor, I think if it wasn't for his injuries, I think he would be one of the elite running backs. And I think we're going to see that this year.
It would not surprise me, and I would be happy to be wrong on that. I think JT is one of the real good guys of the NFL. Every time I've heard him talk, he just seems like a real genuine good dude. I like him. But I got to knock you a little bit if you're coming back from a injury. And, there's just a little question marks about you. I put him as a B-rated guy. Wouldn't surprise me if he goes up. We also have to understand that their team is really young. And their quarterback likes to run. So will his opportunities be less? Maybe. And like I said, in 10 games to have basically almost 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, it's incredible. That's really incredible. But we'll see what happens this year. I won't be surprised if Swift is a B running back. I didn't even have him on my list, but it wouldn't surprise me. And it wouldn't surprise me if Saquon is not an A running back this year. But that's my list. I only had one team with 2 running backs. That's Montgomery and Gibbs. I'll tell you that I did think about bringing a rookie up, but Blake Corum, who was in Michigan, was a really hard, gritty runner. He got drafted by the Rams. And Williams is a really good back that I kind of expect Williams to be an A back by the end of this season. And so I don't think Corum is going to even get the chance,
Yeah. Listen, you don't know. Remember, he's coming from Michigan. That's where his coach, so you never know what's going to happen. Michigan players, these guys do well.
Yeah. All right, guys, comment and tell us where I got it wrong. what you didn't like, who I missed, who's your guy that you can't believe is not on this list. Please let us know. Please comment, and please hit that little subscribe button. We love it. Roy, tell them what else they need to do.
Listen, you need to subscribe. You need to hit the like button. Hit the like button. You need to comment. But more than anything, you need to talk to a stranger about sports today.